We know what Vikings look like in movies and cartoons. Many of us probably have some idea of how they look in the history books. But what was it like to actually be one? Today we'll be experiencing a day in the life of the average Viking. We'll start at dawn when most Vikings would typically wake up, and we'll spend the whole day in Viking society until we retire again for the night. There will be many surprises, both in how similar their lives were and yet how shockingly different. Sit back, relax, and enjoy our journey through a day in the life of an average Viking. Welcome to the Viking Vault. Dawn. To live in Viking society, we have to travel back, way back. Back to, well, before electric light or the domestication of coffee. Here between the 8th and the 11th century, we find humans living in a much more natural state, with their circadian rhythms closely regulated by the rise and fall of the sun. Dawn begins to pour through the timber walls and grass roof of your longhouse. As it gradually grows brighter, you slowly and gently regain consciousness. So does your spouse, who you've been waking up next to since you were both teenagers. Though you share a bed, you don't have the longhouse all to yourselves. Children and extended family are also sleeping together in their own beds, all under the same long, narrow roof. Even on the off chance you're unmarried, there's still likely someone or other waking up next to you. The reason is, quite simply, warmth. Particularly in winter, night temperatures are well below freezing. Even huddling beneath several layers of wool is still not enough if you do it alone. Farming. Braving the cold all night long may have left your belly rumbling, but it's not your turn to eat just yet. As you put on your tunic and trousers and step out into the glimmering morning light, your first task is to crunch across the snow towards your livestock. You, like most Vikings, are a farmer. Vikings keep sheep, pigs, cattle, horses, and chickens, and they too have all worked up an appetite during the night. After feeding all the animals, it's time to start tending to the food you and your fellow Vikings will enjoy in the future. Tying your hair back and rubbing your hands to keep them warm, you milk the cows. Once finished with that, it's time to tend to your crops. Depending on the season, you might spread manure across the field or enlist your oxen to drive an ard, a simplified rendition of a plow, over the soil. Or you might get on your hands and knees and scatter seeds yourself across the field, or if in the interim stage, you might set about repairing tools, fences, and other such items around the farm. But no matter what the season, your morning begins out in the field, devoting time and physical labor to the most important responsibility you have, feeding yourself and your loved ones. Your daily hard work ensures that oats, barley, vegetables, and wheat are all staples of the Viking diet. And come midday, it's time for your efforts to be rewarded. It's mealtime, the first of two. Lunch. Meals are a chance to relax, and they are also a chance to socialize. The Vikings are very communal eaters, gathering in longhouses around a fire pit to cook, discuss community matters, and make plans. Other members of Viking society, whom you know quite well, are there to join in, including blacksmiths, boat builders, and leather workers. Particularly welcome guests are fishermen, who may arrive with fresh catches to share. Farming all morning has spiked your appetite, and you're in luck because there's plenty to eat. Meat such as fish or pork may be the bulk of the meal, but on the side there may be bread, fruits, berries, vegetables, locally grown hazelnuts, butter, cheese, or perhaps even skyr, a type of yogurt invented by your ancestors and enjoyed by your descendants, even centuries from now, albeit in the plastic containers of the distant future. Viking agriculture saw such a wealth of hearty proteins and various soil crops that it was often best to simply dump all the items in a massive stew. Though you are now leaned back in the longhouse with your belly full, that stew is already simmering, and by evening mealtime, you'll be glad for this. Trading and raiding. Spending some time talking with your fellow Vikings has you thinking about the future of your village. And that's good, because your next focus will be on planning and preparing for the rhyming duo of Viking foreign policy. Despite your harsh reputation as a ruthless invader, you and your fellow Vikings rely on peaceful bartering with others for many of your most important goods. Your trading relationships stretch far across Europe. They even reach Asia and the Far East. Trading expeditions are long and arduous, but earn your people everything from precious metals to silks to wine. Whether you are to embark on the mission yourself or not, the planning of trade missions is a crucial part of Viking life. So is planning and preparing for those far-off places with whom you do not have a friendly relationship. England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Italy, even Iceland, to name a few. As a member of the notoriously ambitious Viking society, your culture seeks to venture into distant enemy lands in search of untold riches for the taking. Though you love your homeland, looking around at the largely barren, snow-covered landscape, it's easy to see why raiding other lands is so appealing. Training and weapons practice. Logistics are one thing, but to fully prepare for battle, you have to train. As midday gives way to afternoon, you join your fellow Vikings out in the grass to go through weapons training and mock fights. Time flies when you're having fun. Being a warrior is the highest honor you can get. You and your peers all take their training extremely seriously. As a Viking, one of your key practices is Gleamer, a wrestling-like martial art that is unique to your society. You also have a variety of weapons to hone your skills with. Longbows, spears, lances, swords, battle axes, a worthy Viking must have command of them all, as well as the ability to protect from them with a wooden shield. The Mead House. As the sun begins to sink towards the horizon, battle training is over. It's time for the community to gather in the Mead House. This, most would agree, is the best part of the day. Scandinavian society, from the tall to the small, all come together in the Mead House to play games, tell stories, celebrate victories, and, best of all, drink and chow down. Viking dinners are nothing less than full-on feasts. It's time for a hearty bowl of that stew you've been thinking about since midway through weapons practice. In addition to the meat and vegetables in the stew, you'll also stuff yourself with bread, cheese, and plenty of ale or mead. Alcohol isn't just an indulgence, it's essential for your health. Both ale and mead are relatively weak by 21st century standards, but the mild alcohol content and the fact that they have to be boiled during the brewing process means they're often safer to drink than plain water. Men, women, the old, the young, even children, all spend the evening getting toasted and hydrated off these staple beverages. Soon the evening has turned into a full-blown party. Musicians play flutes, drums, and lyres, your friends and family members laugh whilst dancing in a variety of folk styles. The mood is light and free, but this part of Viking life is taken quite seriously. In addition to the frivolity, the mead hall after dinner is a time and place to discuss political matters and honour the gods as well. The days ahead. As the evening winds down, you find yourself yawning. You've been up since dawn and spent most of the day on your feet, tending to the farm, training for battle, and dancing or playing games in the mead hall. With heavy eyelids, you and your family retire to the longhouse. The whole process will repeat itself all over the next morning. Although this was a fairly typical day in your life as a Viking, many days are not so easy or joyous. As a Viking, your responsibility is not just to tend to affairs at home, but to forge out into the open seas and tend to affairs abroad as well. You might spend as much as several months of the year waking up not in the longhouse, but on a ship with only the sky above you. Whereas life at home is a balance of work and leisure, life at sea is almost entirely work from the moment you wake till the moment you collapse to sleep again. Your hours are spent tending to the ship, helping navigate, braving the elements, and of course running to shore and attacking coastal villages. When conditions permit, some evenings allow the crew to relax and sing songs or share stories, with only the stars above and the open sea around them. Whether abroad or at home, Viking life is in many ways not so fundamentally different from life as we know it today. You wake in the morning, you do your job, you eat, you work out, and you spend time with friends and family around the dinner table before winding down and repeating the cycle. In other ways, the lived experiences of the Vikings were noticeably different. A Viking warrior's year saw oscillation between two extremes. Highly repetitive community life spent doing the same things around the same people in the same small place, and then highly dangerous and adventurous voyages into distant and mysterious lands where you had no contact at all with your family. Both modes were very physically demanding, especially the voyages. Voyages also required an unshakable resolve as they often involved brutal violence and the unpredictable loss of your fellow Vikings. One can easily imagine that returning home from a successful voyage would be a joy and a relief like no other. But returning from a bloody battle with bad news could just be one nightmare leading into the next. Indeed, part of your appreciation for ceremony and religion as a Viking comes from the inherent precarity of your lives. Whatever your role, from the most decorated warrior on down, your community depends on your contribution. The Life of a Viking. Our lives today may often be far more comfortable and secure than the life of the average Viking, but in the modern world it can be harder to feel a sense of connection to the community around you. The Vikings were all about community, and everything you did as a Viking was directly and visibly connected to the well-being of the people around you. This means that as a Viking, your sense of individuality was also diminished compared to today. Most goods are shared between everybody as communal property. You may carry some impressive weapons on your belts that are yours to wield, but even these would have been earned through service, usually by protecting your community on the battlefield. As evening temperatures begin to drop and you lay your weary head down beside your spouse, your thoughts are clear and focused. Clear and focused. Arduous though your challenges may be, you only have a few simple things to worry about. You dream of your spouse happy, your children growing healthy and strong, your elders proud of you for giving everything you had to make Scandinavia flourish. While a day in the life of a Viking may seem foreign in many ways, the desires that drive each day forward are perhaps not so unfamiliar. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Viking Vault. Please do subscribe if you're enjoying these videos, and I'll see you next week for another one. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic week. Cheers!